This Wednesday afternoon edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and our friends at Total Apex Sports, brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. What's your favorite sport? Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, maybe wrestling, maybe even boxing. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You can get it at firstroundcollectibles.com. And right now, with our promo code, you can get any sports card you want for 10% off. They have a sale ongoing up to 50% off hundreds of cards. And with our promo code, not only do you get 10% off of regular price items, but sales items as well. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today and find your heroes. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. Use promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular priced and sales price items. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these.
And welcome to this Wednesday afternoon edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports. I am Mark Sauter. It is good to be here. Lots to break down in a wild Tuesday night in the NHL. But first, as always, we introduce the gang at the top of your screen. Right next to me, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. John, how we feeling on a Wednesday, man?
Feeling pretty good, man. Lots of hockey to dive into. Even have some playoff spots starting to get handed out. So looking forward to diving into that one.
Absolutely. And at the bottom of your screen, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. You read his gambling picks on winners and whiners. You see him talk all things professional and college sports on Total Apex Sports. A busy man's about to get even busier because baseball starts tomorrow. Don't know how you do it. Andre, how you doing on a Wednesday, bro?
I'm doing pretty well. I get through it because I have no life and I love sports, but that's fine. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Absolutely love it. So lots to get into from last night. Only 2 games on the ice tonight. And by the way, just a little, you know how I like to complain and take the negative angle when I can. Thanks, NHL, for staggering the 2 games by half an hour. You couldn't even make Tampa Bay an 8 o'clock start, eh? 7:30 games are done by 10. What am I going to do after 10? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, my wife and I have been crushing Parks and Rec recently. I guess I can do that, but come on, give us at least another hour of hockey. But anyway, I digress. Crazy night last night. Let's just dive right into it, man. Andre, let's start with you. What's your takeaway from the NHL last night?
Yeah, so I'm going to head to the world's most famous arena, the one and only Madison Square Garden, but it's not for the team that I'm repping today. I will say, very proud of my boys. First to 100 points, first to clinch a playoff spot. Artemi Panarin, 100-point season, first Ranger in almost 20 years, and the first time in his career. Shout out to COVID for ruining the first time. But my takeaway is really on the Flyers, who had one of the greatest self-preservation acts we might see this season. Last night could have been a disaster for him. It almost was a disaster for him. Red Wings and Capitals, pretty much the 2 teams they're trying to keep off their tail, the 2 teams they're trying to keep at bay, playing each other. They go to overtime. Both teams pick up a point. That's already a bad start. If you don't pick up any points, you're losing ground. In the wild card race, you're losing ground. In the Metro race, actually, they would have been out of third in the Metro if they didn't pick up a point last night. So it's a good thing they were up 2-0 with roughly 25 minutes left. You got to think, okay, they're doing pretty well. 2 points. They're going to keep their distance. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't like what happens in the nation's capital until the Rangers turn it on. Suddenly the Flyers are down 3-2. They tie it. They're down 4-3. They tie it. They're down 5-4. They tie it. They get it to overtime. They get the point they need. They toss out fourth liners and lose an OT, which is another weird Torts decision. But they pick up the point that they need. And although the Capitals are breathing down their necks, I would pretty much just give them third in the Metro at this point, 1 game back with 2 points, 2 games in hand. The Red Wings are still 3 points back. Even with that 1 game in hand, they cannot outright catch the Flyers. All things settled, if they were even in games, they'd still be a point back. So huge self-preservation act by the Flyers to pick up the point that they almost threw away. Keep the Red Wings at bay, stay third in the Metro, gives themselves some breathing room on what could have been a disastrous night.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny you mentioned Torts because he didn't do the press conference last night. The assistant coach did, and my mind is blanking. I want to say Brad Scott, but that doesn't sound right. I can't remember, but the assistant coach, he ended up doing the presser last night. I feel like Torts is like, listen, I'm getting a bit carried away with these pressers. I need to take a chill pill, as they say. And also, shout out to your guy, Laviolette, man. 800 wins last night. Got his 800th win as an NHL head coach. So really, really cool to see. John, let's go to you, man. What's your takeaway from last night?
My takeaway is going to involve the other teams at the top of the Eastern Conference, and that's the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. Well, this is mainly about Boston. First off, I'll say I think they got a big win last night. One that I think mentally could help them get some more confidence and momentum going into the playoffs, because the Panthers have been like a thorn by the side for the Bruins, at least in the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were many people's darling to come out of the Eastern Conference going into this stretch. I think this win is a reminder for the Bruins, at least, that they can do it, that they're still a team that's capable of taking down an elite team like Florida, so to speak, and a team that did just win the President's Trophy last year. I'll add a bonus for the Bruins for something we were talking about in the pre-show, that we were talking about how the Rangers clinched a playoff spot and they were the only ones. Well, somehow the Bruins did not clinch a playoff spot last night, and that was because of Detroit getting a point against Washington to circle back around to that. So if Detroit wins out and Boston somehow avoids an overtime game and goes 0-9, watch out. Yeah, I guess you got to worry, Bruins fans,
Yeah, and it's so funny, man. Like, I didn't do it on this show because we didn't do our show until the season already started, but I did bet under 90. Was it under 99? Maybe it was less than that. Under 92 points for Boston this season. You lose Bergeron, he is the straw that serves the drink there. He has been for a long, long time. You lose Krejci. I love like the idea of having 2 number 1 goalies, but I felt like eventually you need to lean on one guy. I just felt like they were gonna fade away this year, and it's just remarkable what they've been doing, man. There's just something about the way that they play hockey, the standard that they have within that locker room. They lose 2 of their key players, and they just keep on going. It doesn't matter. So super impressive what they've been able to do. I just want to let's see here. Can we find it? Oh, you can't find it. I wanted to find the Boston Bruins to miss the playoffs, but because if they lose out and Detroit wins out, But no, DraftKings won't even let the degenerates do what they do. If let the degens degen. That's what I always say. But anyway, moving on to my takeaway from the NHL last night. The Nashville Predators losing 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 4-1. Come back to win 5-4 against the Vegas Golden Knights. Nashville, 90 points, 4 points up now on Vegas, still holding on to that number one wild card seed. They are only 4 points back of the Winnipeg Jets, boys. Winnipeg, they got a point last night. Really good game out in Edmonton. But this Nashville Predators team, man, they keep on winning. That game last night, they're down, they're out, they come back, find a way to win that hockey game, which got me thinking. And I wanted to pose this question to you guys and just something to think about. I don't know what the correct answer is. I don't know what this actually means, but I was thinking about this, okay? Edmonton goes on a 16-game winning streak. All right. They have Draisaitl. They have McDavid. Evander Kane, who's been hot and cold, but when he's on, he's on. They got Hyman getting his 51st goal in overtime last night. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he's had his injury problems, but he is just the pinnacle of consistency for that hockey team. Bouchard on the back end, Ekholm on the back end. They got some really, really good players. They said it in the summer, Stanley Cup or bust. That was the expectation for this team within the locker room going into the regular season. We all know about the tough start they had, firing their coach. They go on that 16-game heater and really losing, what was it, like 3 games in the span of 30 games, something like that. Just an unbelievable run by Edmonton. Then you have the Nashville Predators, who went on an 8-game winning streak from February 17th to March the 2nd. Then they lose 1, they win 2, they lose another 1. Both those losses in overtime. They are now on a 6-game winning streak again. They are on an 18-game point streak right now. So my question to you, and the reason why I went through the whole Edmonton roster and what they've done, we talk about this, man. Like, they have Forsberg, they have O'Reilly, they have Nyquist, who's, steady Eddie. He's not putting up crazy numbers, but he does what he does. You have Roman Josi, and yes, you have Saros in net, which maybe kind of balances out. But besides that, man, you just got hardworking players. Like, I watch the NHL every single night, and I can't list off every single Nashville Predator. Can you? What's more impressive? Edmonton Oilers with 2 of the best players in the world winning 16 in a row, or the Nashville Predators winning 16 out of 18 and those 2 losses come in overtime to, yes, a Montreal team, but to a Minnesota team who's been fighting for a playoff spot for the better half of the season. I don't know. I was thinking that last night. Like, this might be more impressive than the Edmonton Oilers 16-game winning streak. And that's not to diminish what they've done. I just think the Nashville story is not being talked about enough. And yes, Saros, when he's on, he's one of the best goaltenders in the world, no doubt about it. But I don't know, guys. I don't know. John, is that even a conversation worth having? Because to me, when I look at the Edmonton roster and I look at the Nashville roster, I kind of think this is more impressive, man. Not that the Oilers streak isn't impressive. Like, clearly it's amazing. But I guess, like, to further my point, to have 2 seasons like this in the same season is pretty remarkable.
I don't think I'm there yet. Saying this is more impressive. Although I will say last night's win was very impressive for Nashville, for sure. to continue this streak. I think Edmonton still gets it for me because of the fact they won all those games, and this is more of a point streak for Nashville. The vast majority of it are wins. I still I think I was still more blown away by Edmonton's streak, despite the talent difference for sure. But I think either way, what we could take away from this is like, but no matter which one you think is more impressive, you are right that it's impressive. Both of these things have happened in one regular season.
Right. What about you, Andre? If you had to pick one or the other, what do you think is the most impressive between these two teams?
I would say Nashville. I just think, we've seen this Oilers team get ungodly hot before. They obviously can outscore anyone on any single night with just two players alone. Because McDavid single-handedly can break down defense. Draisaitl can single-handedly break down the defense. Zach Hyman is a 50-goal scorer. You're not getting that with the Predators. I know they're a balanced team. There's no superstars there that can drag you that far. Saros is a really, really, really good goalie. He's a great goalie. He's not single-handedly dragging the team this far. I think it's top to bottom, just 18 skaters, 2 goalies, coaching staff, a front office, all just clicking at the right time, and every single night just fighting for every point they can get, every 2 points they can get. And it's really impressive, especially where they were to where they are now. So I would definitely say with Edmonton, you saw the talent. I think the potential was always there. I don't think anyone would have come into the season saying, I think the Nashville Predators are going to have one of the most impressive streaks of the season.
No, and don't forget, last year to finish off the season, from March 1st until the end of the season, the Oilers went on an 18-3 stretch. So it's like, once again, I'm not diminishing what the Oilers have done. I just think like the disparity of like the rosters, like, to me, I don't know, man, this Nashville thing is crazy and I love to see it. And more likely than not, they're going to play some Canadian teams in the playoffs, and I want to see Canadian teams go as far as they possibly can. But it's hard not to root for this Nashville team, man. There's just something about them that I just can't help it. I absolutely love it. What bums me out, and I think, John, you and I have had this conversation before, what bums me out is their color scheme is just absolutely god-awful. Like, watching those jerseys is disgusting. They're brutal, and I wish they would go back to the navy blues. I don't know how much nicer they are, but they're way nicer than whatever that garbage is. It drives me nuts. I like watching an aesthetically pleasing experience. Like Saturday when Nashville was playing Detroit, like yellow, gold, and red, like it was just ugly. It was awful. So that's what bums me out about the Nashville experience. But other than that, it's just been an absolutely beautiful thing.
What are you gonna do when they get shiny mustard yellow helmets?
Oh my god, dude! Oh, it's coming, right? It's coming. I don't understand those helmets. I don't get it. I don't know. I'm not some like fashion savant by any means. I think that's between the pre-show and this show. I've used the word savant twice, which I don't even know if I've ever said it before in my life. But yeah, dude, those shiny helmets, it's coming, right? It has to be. I feel like there's going to be a day where every team has those stupid helmets, but what can you do? It's going to be like a Detroit San Jose Christmas Eve game, and they're both going to have their friggin' shiny helmets like a stupid Christmas tree on a December 23rd. But anyway, I digress. One more point, and I know that I should have done my takeaway first because I have something else to say. So I've been yammering on, if you will, for a while. But I want to give one other shout out in the NHL last night. Now, my one of my favorite players to watch. You guys, if you've watched the show for any length of time, you guys, doing this show with me, you know that I have this weird love for the Coyotes. And a lot of that is due to the fact that one of my favorite players for me to watch in my lifetime of all time, probably top 5, is Shane Doan. Just him, he was just one of the great underrated players. Shane Doan, 20 seasons in the NHL, all of them with the Coyotes. The first season of his career was as a Winnipeg Jet. Then they moved to Arizona, and he spent the rest of his career with the Phoenix Coyotes. 20 seasons, 1,540 games, 402 goals, 570 assists, 972 points. Just an all-around legend. Really helped that team in Phoenix establish themselves. And you remember in the mid-2000s, they had some deep playoff runs. And just an all-round great professional and one of my favorite players to watch in my lifetime. Well, his son made his NHL debut last night for the Arizona Coyotes, and Josh Doan scores 2 goals last night. One of them being the game winner as they beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 6-2. So shout out to Josh Doan, shout out to Shane Doan. Sometimes when these players get drafted, it's just, I think, natural to think like, oh, you're just drafting him because he's Shane Doan's son. And it's like, nah, man, this guy was a legit prospect, a legit college athlete. And in his debut last night, scores 2 goals. Now, maybe the bigger storyline to this is Shane Doan is the assistant general manager in Toronto. And while his team was losing 6-3 against the Devils, he's in Arizona cheering on his son. So maybe we need to start questioning the commitment of the management in Toronto. That's where you are. You're watching your son score his first NHL goal. I think he's saying family is more important than winning, and I think we need to launch a full-scale investigation. But in all seriousness, shout out to Josh Doan, shout out to Shane Doan, and shout out to that guy who ripped his shirt off and was waving it around when Josh Doan scored. If you guys haven't seen that, look at that. It was just outrageous. But yeah, so I just want to throw that out there, man. Really happy for the kid. And anything good that happens to Shane Doan, I got to talk about it because he's just an absolute legend. All right, moving on. I'll stop talking now. Let's get into our bad beats from last night. Lots of them to go around, I feel like. John, let's start with you, man. What was your bad beat in the NHL last night?
Well, instead of it involving my boys, it's going to involve Andres. The Rangers Flyers game was a bit wild last night for anybody who watched it. But even if you didn't, looking at the box score, it's like, okay, there were no goals in the first period, right? And during the show yesterday, I picked the Rangers to win in 60 minutes. And admittedly, that did not look great at the end of the second period. But like the third period, we were working towards it. Well, the third period ends up having 7 goals combined between the Rangers and the Flyers. And I believe Andre mentioned this before we got on the air, that the Rangers tied that game like 3 different times in that period. So you have 7 goals scored in a single period, and yet the game still goes to overtime. And this is just one period. Rangers end up winning in overtime to add insult to injury. So the money line bet would have hit, but unfortunately, the one I choose to go for, the 60-minute line, did not. And I'll do a runner-up too. This one's not quite as bad, but I got burned twice by the 60-minute line last night, the other one being Nashville. But Nashville was down by so much in that game that didn't sting nearly as much.
Yeah, I hear you there. Andre, let's go to you, man. What's your bad beat from last night?
Yeah. So yesterday, talking about the Avs Canadians, I said Marty St. Louis is back. The Canadians will score 2 goals now instead of 1. And they did. They went to Denver. They scored 2 goals. And Colorado, you're holding a team to 2 goals, highest scoring team in the league. You think you're going to do pretty well. Instead, the Avs scored 1 goal at home. Pretty much unfathomable. Not only didn't cover the puck line, but they straight up lost. Shocking game. Really hurt me. Financially, at least, not like actually. But
You're
didn't
okay.
actually hurt me. But to see, I don't know, if you tell me the Avs are going to hold a team to 2 goals at home, 100% of the time I think they're winning by 2 or 3.
Sure.
So everything I wanted, everything I thought I needed, and instead, great call by you, the Canadians won. So that's my bad beat. It's the Avs offense no showing for the first time all season, when I say they're going to win 5-2. And they did the defensive part exactly how I thought.
I'm telling you, man.
Mark's call of the year.
What's that, John?
Might be your call of the year, man.
I'm telling you, man, if the Montreal Canadiens avoid being a normal, stupid NHL team and fire their coach after like 5 minutes, I think this team can be a force to be reckoned with for the next decade. Once they get over this hump, like, he really matters to that team. And I'm speaking, of course, of Marty St. Louis. He matters to that team. And if they can just avoid being trigger happy and let him friggin' coach, I think he can make a difference there in the long term. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Nathan MacKinnon. Speaking about the Nashville point streak and how that's not being talked about enough, Nathan MacKinnon has scored a point in every single home game this year, which is just unbelievable. So shout out to him. He got it done, but could not get the win, and more importantly, couldn't put money in Andre's bank. For me, my bad beat. Now, you know the drill here, guys. When we do bad beats, it's a close call. It's something, that we really thought would happen and then didn't happen. And Anaheim, and that's not just in the context of like pregame, but even during the game. Listen, Anaheim, to pick them to win against anybody, that's kind of on us. That's on me. To beat Seattle, okay. Not a bad beat in and of itself. However, this is still the National Hockey League, right? The best league in the world, the number 1 league in the world. The Anaheim Ducks not only lose 4-0 to the Seattle Kraken last night, who have underachieved in their own right. I think the hopes for Seattle were much larger than the hopes for the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks got outshot 36-12. 12 shots. 12, guys. 12. Like, that's a bad beat. You look at the score, you're like, okay, that's not really a bad beat. That's a bad beat if I ever saw one. Like, I'm trying to find 4 shots in the first period, 5 shots in the second period, 3 shots in the third period, 12 shots. Absolutely awful. That's my bad beat. A professional hockey team got 12 shots last night, and it's just abysmal. Just finish it. Get the season over with, boys, because this is just awful. All right, let's move on. Now that I got that off my chest, let's move on. 2 games in the NHL tonight. Like I said, thanks a lot, NHL, for not staggering these bad boys out. The first one, the Ottawa Senators are in Buffalo. 2 teams with high hopes at the beginning of the season. Buffalo, I think it's fair to say that my hopes, that my $20 that I invested in the Buffalo Sabres was pretty much a waste of money. But hey, that's what happens in the world of gambling sometimes. Ottawa plus 120 on the road. Buffalo minus 142 at home. The over is 6.5 at -102. The under is -112. -1.5 for the Buffalo Sabres is +164. +1.5 for the Ottawa Senators is -198. Andre, let's start with you, man. What do you see in this game tonight?
Yeah, I'm sorry that you burnt $20, man. That could have gone somewhere much more valuable, but it was
What
worth
can you?
a shot. For this game, do I see the Sabres getting back on track? I do. They had a 5-game road trip. They didn't do too well. 4 of those games were that West Coast, that Pacific Northwest, if you will, swing, to in Alberta, to in the BC/Washington area. They're back home now. They won their last homestand, or not won their last homestand. They went 3-0 in their last homestand. 14 in goals scored, 5 goals allowed, so +9 differential. They played really well. That included the 7-3 win over the Red Wings. That included the 3-2 win over the Oilers. So I think Buffalo getting back on home ice is important for them. This is the beginning of a very long homestand. This is probably their last chance to make a run for a playoff spot in all seriousness.
Yeah.
Not dead yet. You got to think, if they don't, looking at their schedule ahead, if they don't win 4 or 5, the Toronto loss, you can probably eat. They're done for. So huge stretch for them. They get a weak team, Ottawa team that sucks on the road. We've said it all season. I don't care that they've scored 5 goals in their last 2 games, 10 total, or 10-5 aggregate. They've been garbage on the road all year. I'm going to trust that. Before these last 2 games, they had scored exactly 2 goals in 3 straight. They had given up 18 goals in those 3 losses. I'm trusting that version of the Senators to show up. Give me the Sabres -1.5 and give me the over.
Okay, John, what do you see here, bro?
It's an interesting argument to make, to have Ottawa cool down here, because if we're being honest, the last 2 games Ottawa won, well, one of them at least, it was a game that you would never expect the Senators to win, and the other one being my team. So what I'm trying to say is, one could argue that Ottawa is due for a loss. With that said, I don't really trust Buffalo right now. I don't love the way they're playing. I do think they're trending in the wrong direction despite coming off a win. With that said, going into today's show, I was more set on taking the Ottawa money line, but I'm starting to pivot. I think I'm going to focus on the over instead, because I do think Andre has an argument that Ottawa couldn't get back to reality in this game. But Ottawa's still one of the highest scoring teams in the NHL, and I don't love Buffalo's goaltending. They're right around the middle of the pack, allowing just literally just under 3 goals a game. Ottawa's still one of the best scoring teams in the league. And Ottawa still gives up a lot of goals besides their wonky wins. They're still 29th in the league in goals allowed. So I would expect Ottawa to not have a shutdown game here. I'd expect some goals to get through the net on their end, and they'll probably make it a fight. So over 6.5, I think that's something I really like here.
Yeah, so the Ottawa Senators, 5-4-1 their last 10. Like you, Andre, the fact that they scored 10 goals the last 2 games, don't care. 11-20-2 on the road. This is something that kind of jumped out at me this morning looking through these stats. And I mean, listen, we look through these stats every single day. We look at the standings every day. We watch these games every night. But something that really jumped out at me for the first time today, like you mentioned, John, they're 14th in the league in goals per game. All right. A top half team. 29th, like you said, in goals allowed. Not just the bottom half team, but like the bottom 3 in the league, or bottom 4 in the league. They have a -24 goal differential. Somehow, like, between the goals they score, the goals they allow, like, for being a top half team and in goals per game, and still having a minus goal differential that large is just infuriating to me. Like this team, and I just like Claude Giroux. What a great player, great career. Goes to Ottawa to die, essentially. Like just to finish out his career, trying to get this helpless team to a playoff run. So I noticed that. The one thing I will say, to stick with the Ottawa side for a moment, on the prop side. Now, I don't like doing Ottawa props because who the frig knows what's going to happen with this team. Brady Tkachuk, though, he has 25 shots in his last 5 games. His last 2 games, he has had 2 shots in each game. But the 5 games before that, he had 6 shots, 8 shots, 7 shots, 6 shots, 7 shots. So I do think that the 2 shots per game in his last 2 is an anomaly. And I do think that he gets back to shooting the puck tonight. Buffalo, while I do think that this defense in the future is going to be phenomenal, still not top notch as far as the season goes. Brady Tkachuk for over 4.5 shots is plus 120. So putting the last 2 games aside, he has 6+ shots in 5 games. And only 2 of those did he actually get 6 on the nose. So I really like him to get 4.5 shots plus tonight at plus 120. From the Buffalo side of things, they're also 5-4-1 in their last 10. I'm right there with you, Andre. I see this team bouncing back in a big way tonight. And to give my playoff bet a fighting chance, they play Ottawa tonight. They play your boys in New Jersey, or in Buffalo, but against New Jersey on Friday, John. They play my Leafs on Saturday. Like you said, Andre, all at home. They stay home. Next week, they play Washington, where if they can go 2-1, maybe 3-0 in these next 3 games. And I know they're playing Toronto, but Toronto-Buffalo games are always just pure chaos. So anything can happen in that game. Then they play Philly next Friday. They play Detroit next Sunday. And they still have one more game against Washington after that. So they can still make this interesting down the stretch. Not likely, but not all hope is lost, and we'll see what happens. As far as tonight's game goes, the puck line makes me a bit nervous just because Ottawa can score with the best of them when they're feeling it. I would lean 60-minute line. Although with Ottawa being able to score a bunch of goals, I can absolutely see this game going to overtime. I'm looking at a 5-4, 6-4 game. I think it's going to be really high scoring. So if you want to bet Buffalo, but the puck line makes you a bit nervous, and the 60-minute line makes you a bit nervous, the money line minus 142 is a little bit expensive. I think betting the over is just as good as anything else in this game at minus 108. I think this is an absolute lock. There's a reason why it's not plus money, as we have seen over 6.5 be plus money quite a bit this week. So if you want to bet Buffalo, but you don't like the prices of picking them on any angle, I think the over is a terrific bet at minus 108 over 6.5. All right, moving on to the second and final game on our slate tonight. Boston is in Tampa Bay. John, you were talking about Boston, that big win last night. Tampa Bay, as a Leaf fan, this is a game that you have to pay attention to because Tampa Bay are only 4 points back with the Leafs losing last night. Tampa Bay is only 4 points back of the Leafs for that 3rd spot in the Atlantic. So big game for Tampa Bay if they want to move up in the standings. But as we've mentioned a lot with both conferences, it doesn't really matter where you fall, man. It's going to be a gauntlet no matter where you land in the standings. Boston minus 105 on the road. Tampa Bay minus 115 at home. The over is 6 at minus 105. The under is minus 115. Minus 1.5 on the Tampa Bay puck line is plus 215, while plus 1.5 is minus 265. Andre, I don't remember who we did first last time. Who cares? Andre, go ahead, man. What do you see in this game tonight?
Yeah, so, well, I hate to break it to you, I went first last time. I see Tampa picking up a win. They're at home, huge for me. I'm really high on this Lightning team at home. Secondly, Bruins won last night. They won a big game last night. And even with that 4-3 win over the Panthers, it wasn't easy for them. It never is. And regardless of how this game unfolds, I just don't see a path where the Bruins shut the door on the Lightning. If they have a lead, I can see them letting Tampa tie it up and come back to win. If they're trailing, I can't see them closing the gap and then successfully punctuating it. So I'm going to take the Tampa minus 115. I think that's great odds, and I think that might be my favorite bet of the day.
Look at you go, John. What about you, man? What do you see in this one tonight?
I might go a step further and touch the puck line here. I really like Tampa, and I really like Tampa in this one, which is ironic after my whole takeaway was about Boston. But here's the thing. I think Boston's kind of flying high after last night a little bit. They beat Florida, and like I said in the takeaway, I feel like that's a bit of an emotional win for them given the recent history between those two clubs. That's a tough, well-fought game. There were a lot of defense in that game. I think I mentioned during the show that both sides only had 21 shots on goal in that game. So the reason I bring this up is because now you're asking Boston to play back-to-back against a team that's not only very good at home, not only has a ton of playmakers on their squad, but they have fresh legs. They haven't played in 3 days, Tampa Bay. And this is a team that typically skates up and down the ice in the first place. And now Boston has to try to keep up with that after coming off a very physical game against Florida. I don't like any of that for the Bruins whatsoever. Since there's only 2 games, let me go a little bold here in saying I think it might be worth a risk to do minus 1.5 at plus 215 for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why not?
It's really good value, obviously. That goes without being said. Maybe I'm being a chicken. Maybe this is a cowardly day for me when it comes to gambling. I like the last game. I like the over more than anything in this game. You mentioned the back-to-back, really hard-fought defensive game. I think by the third period, the legs for Boston will be very tired. That being said, we've seen this before. You're absolutely right about Tampa Bay being well rested, but we've seen this before. You're very well rested. You just came back from a 5-game road trip. You're at home. That first period and a half could be a little bit wonky for you. We've seen that before. You're on this long you started off in Florida, finished off on the West Coast. I can see the first period and a half being a little bit wonky for Tampa Bay. We've seen this before where you come back, you're wonky. The team who played the back-to-back, the first half of the game is awesome for them, and the legs start to catch up with them in the back half. So I really like the over in this game at minus 105. I can see this being a high-scoring game. But Tampa Bay, 3 goals in their last 2 games, 4 goals the game before that, and then 5, 5, 6, 7. So in their last 7 games, they've been scoring a ton of goals. And I really like the over. I think I would lean Tampa Bay just on the money line as well. But like the previous game, I really like the over in this game. All right, 2 games. That's it. Let's move on to our best bets brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. What's your favorite sport? Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, maybe wrestling, maybe even boxing, whatever it is, you can get it at firstroundcollectibles.com. Using our promo code SportsAddict, get 10% off any sports card in the store, including a sale they have ongoing up to 50% off of dozens, hundreds of sports cards. No matter how much the sale is, you get an extra 10% with our promo code SportsAddict. So go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. That's the number 1 STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. You know what? We've been going to Andre first. Let's just keep it going. Why not? Andre, go ahead, dude. What is your best bet for this Wednesday night in the NHL?
Yeah, I'm going back to the last game we did. I know there's only 2, so that doesn't hold as much weight. But I really like the Lightning money line here. They're at home. They're getting a team on the second half of the back-to-back. I just don't think Boston's playing that well still, even after yesterday's win. And yesterday's win was tough. It was hard fought. So I think the Lightning, partly because of the schedule, partly because they're at home, partly because they're quietly still a good team, even if they're not that Stanley Cup front runner they were in years past. I think they pull out the win.
Right there with you, bro. John, what about you, man? What's your best bet tonight?
Since we only have 2 games, I might go with a bit of an unusual bet here. I'm just trying to look up the exact line for this because I didn't mention it before. But I think one thing I'd be really tempted to do outside, because I think puck line is a little too bold for best bets. I'm trying to find the exact Lightning team total. I would be tempted to go over that because I do think the Lightning are going to put up some goals tonight, considering what Boston is coming off of and now what their defense is being asked to do against a team that tends to have a lot of speed and skate back and forth on the ice pretty well. I just don't think Boston's going to keep up well tonight.
So over 3.5 Tampa Bay team total is plus 140. You looking at that one?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Right there with you, man. Love it. All right, so let's cover both games here. My best bet, I'm going to go back to the Ottawa Buffalo game, and my theme for the show has been taking the overs, and I'm going over 6.5 in the Ottawa Buffalo game. I laid it all out before. If you're joining late, rewind a little bit, and you'll see my whole explanation for this. I think, like I said, if you're betting Buffalo or and you don't like the value on the money line, you're a bit nervous about the 60-minute line, and like me, a little bit sheepish on the puck line because Ottawa can score a lot of goals. I think the over is the best bet if you're betting Buffalo. Over 6.5 at minus 108.
Well, me and John went to a real hockey market in Tampa, so the Lightning money line is minus 115. The Lightning over 3.5 goals is plus 140. The Senators Sabres game in Buffalo, much colder up there. Over 6.5 goals minus 108. The 3-pick parlay is plus 404.
404. Let's go. Absolutely love it. Before we sign off, just want to have another quick shout out to Total Apex Sports. Thank you guys so much for having us. Shout out to firstroundcollectibles.com. Thank you for being a part of the show. And to everybody watching, honestly, we've said this a bunch over the last little bit, but we are just super pumped and stoked to have you guys with us. Since the trade deadline, our views have been going up daily, live views specifically. So thank you guys for riding the wave with us. Hopefully you've been making some money along the way. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. We try to go in the mornings. It's been a little bit inconsistent recently. Mostly just because I have a son and things have been insane, but we will try to be back tomorrow morning. But either way, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. Shout out Once again, Total Apex Sports, first round collectibles. Use our promo code Sports Addict for 10% off whatever sports card you want. Good luck on your bets. John, Andre, great job. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Go